Today we will study anemia. So in these slides we will be studying anemia, the definition, classification, grading, common clinical features, common investigations, and after that we will study the different types of anemia: iron deficiency anemia, anemia of inflammation, megaloblastic anemia, aplastic anemia, and hemolytic anemia. What is hematology? Hematology is the study of the blood and its cells. The hematopoietic system, it consists of the two types of tissues which are present in many organs. These are myeloid tissues and lymphoid tissues. The myeloid tissues, they are in the bone marrow and they produce red blood cells, platelets, and WBCs. Whereas the lymphoid tissues are present in thymus, lymph nodes, and spleen, and they give rise to B cells, T cells, and natural killer cells. So let us talk about the red cells. The red cells are circular, they are biconcave disc-like structures, and they contain a pigmented protein, right? A red pigmented protein called as hemoglobin. So in one RBC there are about 640 million hemoglobin molecules, and these red color hemoglobin molecules gives red color to the RBC. The RBC, the total count is 4.5 to 5.5 million per mm cube. That means in 1 mm box there will be approximately 4.5 to 5 million RBCs in the men, and 3.8 to 4.8 million in women. So what is anemia? Anemia is a condition in which number of RBCs or the hemoglobin concentration within those RBCs are lower than the normal. So that means either the RBCs are lower, the total number of RBCs in a person is lower, or the hemoglobin concentration in those RBCs are lower. So what is the normal hemoglobin concentration? So in pregnant women, the normal hemoglobin concentrations are 11 gram per dl. Students, pay attention, this is gram, not micrograms or milligrams. Non-pregnant woman is 12 grams per dl, whereas in men it is 13 grams per dl. So it is very easy to remember: 11, 12 and 13. Pregnant woman 11 is the normal, non-pregnant woman 12 is the normal, and men above 15 years of age is 13 grams per deciliter. Now the classification of anemia. The classification of anemia is broadly categorized into etiological classification and morphological classification. Etiological classification means according to the cause. Morphological means according to the morphology of the RBCs, according to their shape and size. So the etiological classification, it is divided into three main categories. First, decreased production of RBCs. Because of the decreased production of RBCs, the person goes into anemia. Second, increased destruction of RBCs. Because of the increased destruction, anemia is prevailed. And third is blood loss. Because of the blood loss, anemia is prevailed. So first is decreased production of RBCs. What are the different types in which decreased production is seen? Number one is iron deficiency anemia, where there is deficiency of iron which leads to anemia. Second is anemia of inflammation. Because of the inflammation in the body, mostly the chronic inflammations, they lead to anemia. Number third is anemia due to other diseases, for example renal diseases, chronic kidney diseases, hypometabolic states, for example protein deficiencies, endocrine deficiencies, for example thyroid deficiencies, hypothyroidism states, and liver diseases like cirrhosis, like hepatitis or viral hepatitis, right? So all these liver diseases, they can lead to anemia. Next is megaloblastic anemia, where vitamin B12 deficiencies or vitamin B9 deficiencies, folic acid and B12 deficiencies, B12 is cobalamin. So all these deficiencies, these two deficiencies leads to anemia. Next is aplastic anemia, we will talk about this later. Then increased destruction of RBCs, where the RBCs is destroyed earlier than its complete time, that is 120 days. Hemolytic anemia, there are certain anemias in which the destruction of RBC is increased, RBC is destroyed before its presumable time. So those conditions are called as hemolytic anemia, for example thalassemia. Then blood loss, Acute hemorrhage, if some accident has happened and the person has lost blood, then the person will go into anemia after some time. So that is acute hemorrhage. Chronic hemorrhage, for example, there are ulcers in the stomach, or there is some other bleeding point in the body from where chronically the person is losing blood. For example, hookworms, worms in the intestines, right? Ulcers in the stomach or in the intestines, right? Or inflammation of the bowel, for example, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. All these diseases, the inflammatory bowel diseases, they leads to chronic loss of blood, which is called as chronic hemorrhage. Then morphological classification means according to the size of the RBC. So normocytic, normo means normal, cytic means size of the cell. So normal size, so normocytic anemias, then microcytic, smaller size microcytic anemias, and then macrocytic anemias, where the RBC size becomes bigger than the normal, right? So normocytic anemias are generally seen because of the blood loss, because of the anemia of inflammation, and because of the renal diseases, whereas microcytic is commonly seen in iron deficiency anemias and in hemolytic anemias, for example thalassemia. Macrocytic anemias, where the red cells becomes bigger, is seen in megaloblastic anemia, which is due to the deficiencies of vitamin B12 and vitamin B9. Then grading of anemia. So WHO has graded anemia into mild, moderate and severe. Mild anemia, moderate anemia, severe anemia. Mild is when the hemoglobin levels are greater than 10, but there are features, sign and symptoms. For example, mucosal pallor is evident, right? In the mucosa you can observe the pallor. In the skin mucosa you can observe the pallor. And then moderate is when the skin itself shows pallor. And severe, it is less than 7 grams per deciliter, when the palmar creases of the hands, they are also pale. Generally the palmar creases of the hand, they are red, right? But when they become pale, then you can grade the anemia as severe, and the range will be less than 7. So the common clinical features of anemia, now we know that the RBC has hemoglobin which carries oxygen. So when that hemoglobin has iron. So when the iron levels are less in the body, it leads to the low production of hemoglobin, which leads to the hypoxia, reduced oxygen supply to the tissues, right? That is tissue hypoxia. So now this tissue hypoxia produces certain clinical symptoms, right? Non-specific symptoms like weakness here means lethargy, right? Not that nervous weakness, it is the lethargy. Then malaise means fatigability, easy fatigability due to hypoxia of muscles. Dyspnea on mild exertion, whenever person exerts for some purpose, for example climbing the stairs or running, then the person develops dyspnea. Then pallor, right? Because the red colored hemoglobin is less, the red cells are less, which leads to the pallor in the conjunctiva, mucous membranes and nail beds, right? Mucous membranes means the membranes inside the body. For example, you can easily observe the mucous membranes and under the tongue. So mucous membrane of the tongue, in eye conjunctiva and in nail beds, there will be pallor, right? Pallor with icterus. If there is also icterus, that suggests hemolytic anemia. That means RBCs are getting destroyed at a rapid rate, and the liver is unable to maintain that, and which leads to icterus. So such, if pallor plus icterus both are present, then it leads to hemolytic anemia. Then CNS, the central nervous system will also be affected because of the hypoxia. There will be headache, vertigo, tinnitus and lack of concentration. And in long-standing anemia, because of the compensatory mechanisms, there will be cardiac failures, congestive cardiac failures. So the sign and symptoms of congestive cardiac failures will dawn. For example, dyspnea on mild exertion, palpitations, tachycardia, cardiac murmur, and ultimately congestive cardiac failure, right? The congestive cardiac failure is because of the increased cardiac output, because the body tissues will be deficient in oxygen. So the body tissues will demand more blood supply, which will lead to the increased cardiac output. Increased cardiac output will lead to the increase in the workload of the heart, and ultimately the heart will fail because of the increased workload for a longer period of time, which leads to the congestive cardiac failure. The common signs and symptoms of anemia. The most important symptoms are fatigue and reduced exercise capacity. Right, so the three most important signs and symptoms are fatigue, reduced exercise capacity, and from the signs, pallor. Pallor in mucosa, skin, and palmar creases for mild, moderate, and severe anemia. Right, other are lethargy, palpitation, dyspnea on exertion, headache, paresthesia. Paresthesia is numbness, hair loss, anorexia, indigestion, amenorrhea, or oligomenorrhea. Right, complete cessation of menses or less menses. Then tachycardia, sign of cardiac failure, for example raised jugular venous pressure, edema, cardiomegaly, hepatomegaly, splenomegaly, icterus, gallstones. So these could be the signs and symptoms for anemia. The common investigations for anemia are these. We will study them in detail. So first is reticulocyte count. So we know that the reticulocytes are the immature RBCs which are produced within the bone marrow, and if the number of these reticulocytes are increased in the blood, so that is a reflection of bone marrow function or activity. So that means the bone marrow activity is increased. So the normal percentage of these reticulocytes in the blood are 0.5% to 1.5%, but they are increased in the reticulocytes. The immature RBCs are increased in hemolytic anemia because the body requires more RBCs. So the number of immature RBCs in the blood will increase from this percentage in hemolytic anemia. And blood loss. After blood loss, the body tries to recover the RBCs. In order to do that, the body will increase the reticulocyte count in the blood. Whereas they are decreased in bone marrow depression. Whenever there is bone marrow depression, for example under chemotherapy or radiotherapy or some bone marrow cancer, so in these cases there will be bone marrow depression and there will be less reticulocytes than 0.5%. Or in aplastic anemia. Aplastic anemia is again a condition where the red blood cells, WBCs, and platelets are reduced. So let us talk about the next investigation after reticulocyte count. It is hemoglobin. So hemoglobin, we know that the RBC is filled with red color protein which is called as hemoglobin. Now this hemoglobin consists of 4 protein which are 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains. Right, these one alpha chain is called as heme protein, one alpha heme protein, one alpha heme protein, another beta heme protein, and beta heme protein. So this alpha heme protein consists of porphyrin proteins and the globin proteins and the iron in the center, right, along with porphyrin. Right, so iron is held with porphyrin rings around it. So this is the heme in which iron is in the center, and this is the porphyrin ring, and this heme is in the center of one chain which is alpha chain. Right, so 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains are there in an adult hemoglobin, and such hemoglobin molecules, this complete one hemoglobin molecules are in a great quantity. Approximately 640 million hemoglobins are there in one RBC. Right, iron is in the iron plus 2 ferrous form, and iron occupies the oxygen molecule. Right, iron carries the oxygen molecules, and the major type of hemoglobin in an adult is HbA and HbA2. HbA is in the greater quantity and HbA2 is in the lesser quantity. HbA is found by 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains, whereas HbA2 is found by 2 alpha chains and 2 delta chains. So in an adult person, the hemoglobin is of 2 types, HbA and HbA2. HbA alpha 2 beta 2, whereas HbA2 is alpha 2 and delta 2. Whereas in fetus, up to the 4 months or 5 months, the HbF, there will be HbF in spite of HbA. HbF represents hemoglobin in fetus, and this consists of alpha 2 and gamma 2 chains. Right, this fetal hemoglobin is replaced by adult type by 6 months. So this level of hemoglobin will be less than the normal appropriate for age and sex according to the WHO, right? You can refer the hemoglobin levels. So next is hematocrit values, or it is also called as packed cell volume. Packed cell means RBCs, red cell volumes. So red blood cell volume is also called as packed cell volume or hematocrit. So it is the ratio of the volume of red cells to that of the whole blood. So we take blood, we take blood sample, we centrifuge it, and after centrifugation what happens, the plasma and the RBCs, they separate. The RBCs are approximately 50% of the total, right, where plasma is also approximately 50%, right? So the normal value for packed cell volume is, for males it is 40 to 50%, for females it is somewhere less, right? There is a correction in this. Infants 45 to 70%, right? So what you can remember is that the packed cell volume is the volume of RBCs to that of the complete blood, right? Volume of RBCs to that of the whole blood. Now this packed cell volume is very important. These hematocrit levels are very important to assess dehydration. In dehydration, right, dehydration because of vomiting, dehydration because of diarrhea, or dehydration as in dengue, right? In dengue also there will be dehydrations. So in dehydrations in dengue, it increases, the hematocrit level increases. That means the plasma level, right, the plasma level which consists of water, it reduces, right? So the overall, so the ratio of erythrocytes to that of the ratio of the erythrocytes to that of the complete whole blood increases, right? Because the whole blood, you can say the volume of the whole blood decreases, so the ratio of the erythrocytes to that of the whole blood increases. So hematocrit value increases in dehydration and dengue, whereas this hematocrit packed cell volume level decreases in iron deficiency anemia, because the RBC levels decreases, you can say RBC count decreases, right? So the hematocrit value decreases in iron deficiency anemia. Next is red cell indices. Red cell indices are certain tests which we do, lab tests which we do in order to study the RBC. So first is MCV, mean cell volume, right? Mean cell, here cell is the RBC, right, corpuscular volume. So this ring here represents RBC. So you can see I have put this RBC inside a cube, and I am trying to determine the volume occupied by one RBC, right? So the average volume of RBC, and it is expressed in femtoliters. So MCV is equal to, it is calculated by this equation, right? First we calculate the packed cell volume percentage, which is approximately 40 to 50% normal, right? Multiply by 10 divided by RBC count in millions. So the normal range is 82 to 100 femtoliters, right? This shape of RBC, or this size of RBC is increased in macrocytic anemias, and it is decreased in, you can see the size is decreased in microcytic anemias, right? So this abnormal size is called as anisocytes, right? This abnormal size is called as anisocytes, and this phenomena is called as anisocytosis. Iso means equal, an means unequal. So unequal size of RBCs. This is unequal size, the bigger size macrocytic, this is unequal lesser size. So you can see here under the microscope we can see these are the RBC of normal size, whereas this is the RBC of lesser size, hence it is called as microcytic anemias, right? For example, iron deficiency anemias. And here you can see the RBC size has increased, so it is called as macrocytic anemias. Example, megaloblastic anemias, which are due to the deficiencies of vitamin B12 and vitamin B9. So this is your mean corpuscular volume, where we see the volume of RBC. Next is mean cell hemoglobin, or mean corpuscular hemoglobin, MCH. So what we do now, we weigh the RBCs. So RBCs has hemoglobin, RBCs are filled with lots of hemoglobin, so actually we are weighing the hemoglobin, right? So the weight of hemoglobin in one red cell. So MCH is calculated by hemoglobin multiply by 10 divided by RBC count in millions. The normal range is 27 to 32 picograms. So in macrocytic anemias where the size has become big, right, so it can accommodate more hemoglobin. So in macrocytic anemias the MCH levels will go up, whereas in microcytic anemias, because the size is less, so it will accommodate less hemoglobin, or you can say because of the less hemoglobin the size is less, right. So microcytic anemia will have less MCH, whereas macrocytic anemia will have more MCH. Next is MCHC, mean cell hemoglobin concentration. This MCHC is a better indicator, right, than MCH, and basically it is the modification of MCH. So MCHC denotes the average concentration of hemoglobin in the RBCs, right. So it is the average of hemoglobins, average concentrations of all the hemoglobin in all the red blood cells, right. So that can be expressed in hemoglobin in gram per deciliter. For example, somebody is having 12 gram per deciliter as normal, so 12 gram per deciliter multiply 100 divided by packed cell volume. We will divide that hemoglobin by the volume of the average volume of the RBC, right. If we divide that, the RBC, how can we calculate the value? By simply dividing the hemoglobin and packed cell volume, right. If we divide the hemoglobin by packed cell volume, we will get the mean cell hemoglobin concentration, right. It is of greater clinical significance than HB percentage, so that means it is more accurate to determine iron deficiencies anemias based on MCHC rather than hemoglobin percentage. More or less the hemoglobin percentage and the MCHC, they are representing one and the same thing, but MCHC is a better test to determine iron deficiency anemias, to determine the hemoglobin present in the cell. The normal range is 31 to 35 grams per deciliter. You can roughly remember this as double of that of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is roughly 11, 12, 13 as normal, 11 in pregnant and 12 in non-pregnant females and 13 in males. So it is approximately double than that, approximately 30 to 35, right. So hypochromasia means chroma means iron, hypo means less. So whenever the iron is less, that condition is called as hypochromasia, and this is very easily reflected in the RBCs. RBCs are generally red, whereas the normal RBCs are generally red, but the iron deficient RBCs, or you can say hemoglobin deficient RBCs, are pale in color. That is why they give paleness to the body also. So hypochromasia is better indicated by the MCH level, by the MCHC levels. So decreased MCHC levels is seen in iron deficiency anemias and thalassemias. Normal are seen in macrocytic anemia, because macrocytic anemia there will be less hemoglobin, there will be appropriate hemoglobins. So macrocytic anemia, it will be normal, whereas in conditions like sickle cells, the MCHC will be increased, right. Now why it is increased? Because in sickle cell the RBC size is, you can say it is shrunken, it is sickle shaped. So when the RBC size is less and it is packed with more hemoglobin, so when we calculate the MCHC levels for sickle cell, it will be more than the normal. So because the size has become less and it is packed with more hemoglobin, so that is why MCHC levels are going high. Then red cell distribution width in the red cell indices. The next is red cell distribution width. So this distribution width is the index of the variation in the cell volume. So the red cells, the RBCs, the cell volume of the RBCs are different in a normal human being. So when we take the average, right, for example, if average, let us say the average is 15 and the variation, some of the cells they are of 20 size, let us say 20 millimeter cube, and some size cells are 10 millimeter cube. So the maximum deviation, right, in them is allowed in normal human beings is allowed from 11.5 to 14.5%, right. So if the red cell distribution is more than this, then it represents that the RBCs are of different sizes. Otherwise, if they are in this range 11.5 to 14.5% or less than this, then it is considered as a normal red cell distribution width, right? So red cell distribution width is the variation in the volume of the RBCs. That the variation which is allowed is in this range, 11.5 to 14.5%. So this red cell distribution width, if it is increased and the MCV, mean corpuscular volume, is decreased, right? The average volume is decreased and the RDW is increased, that represents iron deficiency anemia. If red cell distribution width is with normal or low MCVs, that represents hemoglobinopathies, which we will study in hemolytic anemias, for example thalassemias. RDW plus high MCVs, it represents megaloblastic anemia, because the mean corpuscular volume has increased and the red cell distribution width has also increased, right? Some cells are small, some cells are large, some cells are normal size. So RDW has increased, so it represents megaloblastic anemias. So next test after red cell indices is peripheral smear. So peripheral smear, the normal RBCs are non-nucleated. We know there is no nucleus in RBCs. Nucleus is replaced by hemoglobin. Biconcave shape, and they have central pallor. The central region of the RBCs is not red, not completely red. It is little paler than the edges. Abnormal size. If the RBCs have abnormal size, we call them as microcytes or macrocytes. These micro and macrocytes together, they are called as anisocytes, means unequal size. Abnormal color, right? The normal, if the color of RBC is less than the normal, we call that as hypochromia stage, or if the cells are more darker, we call that as hyperchromia, right? Hypochromia is generally seen in iron deficiency anemia, whereas hyperchromia or hyperchromasia is seen in some RBC membrane defects. For example, we will study about these membrane defects later on, right? Polychromasia or target cells are, polychromasia means the cells will be altered, the color will be altered. So it is seen in some hemolytic conditions where we see the target cells. Then abnormal shape. The shape of the RBC is generally biconcave, but if it is of different shapes, for example, it is elliptical, or it is spherical, or it is a sickle shape, right? For example, sickle cell anemia, then they are called as poikilocytes, right? Poikilocytes mean abnormal shape. Inclusion bodies, if some extra bodies are seen in RBCs, for example some parasites are seen in RBCs, in malaria, in Kala-Azar, right, we call that as inclusion bodies. So in peripheral smears we see all these things. Now let us see the iron metabolism in the body. So this cell here is a duodenal mucosal cell which are present in the duodenum. So let us say that this is duodenum, and this is the one cell of the duodenum. So duodenal cell, this is the duodenal cell, and these are the villi, and inside is the space where the food is present. So the food contains two types of iron, one is heme iron, one is non-heme iron. Heme iron is the iron, the meat products or the animal sources, right? From meat products, if the iron is coming, that is coming from the hemoglobin itself, so that is the heme iron. And the non-heme iron is the plant based source, for example spinach, for example pulses. So this non-heme iron, so this non-heme iron is in ferric form, Fe+3. It is first reduced to ferrous form, and then the ferrous form is absorbed, whereas the heme iron is directly absorbed. The meat products, they are directly, the iron in meat products is directly absorbed because it is already in ferrous form. Then this ferrous form is absorbed into the duodenal cell, and this duodenal cell releases the ferrous iron into the blood, right? Before going to the blood, this ferrous is reduced to ferric form, and now this ferric form enters the bloodstream, where in the blood there is this protein called as transferrin, which is produced by liver. So the iron is attached to this transferrin, because iron is a toxic molecule, it cannot float like that, so it attaches to the transferrin protein, which is produced by liver, and this transferrin plus iron is transported in the blood to erythroid precursors, for example in the bone marrow cells. The bone marrow takes this iron from this transferrin protein and incorporates into hemoglobin, and incorporates the hemoglobin into the RBCs and produces the RBCs. Right, the iron from this transferrin, when the iron is more, the transferrin also gives the iron to certain storage facilities in the body, which are the reticuloendothelial cells of liver and spleen. So in liver and spleen, the iron is stored, right, in the form of ferritin, right. So the iron is released from the blood into the liver, the transferrin is left in the blood, the iron goes into the liver, and that iron attaches itself to a protein which is apoferritin protein, and apo part is removed, and the iron plus apoferritin protein is together. When the iron attaches to that apoferritin protein, it is called as ferritin. So ferritin is the storage form of iron in the liver and spleen. When this ferritin is in huge quantity, then another protein comes, and the that larger ferritin molecules, they are now called as hemosiderin. So the body stores iron in two forms. One is ferritin and another is hemosiderin. Right, this serum ferritin, is, some of it is leaked into the blood, and the blood contains serum ferritin as well, only 10%. Right, so the blood contains iron, the ferric form of iron, in two forms, one in plasma, one as plasma transferrin, right, iron attached to the transferrin protein, and one is iron attached to the ferritin protein. Right, the ferritin is the storage form, and the plasma transferrin is the available form. The iron is available, the iron becomes available only from the transferrin protein. Right, so once again, the plasma contains two types of iron, or iron bound to two types of protein. One is serum iron and another is serum ferritin. So now let us study the serum ferritin. Serum ferritin is a lab test, as well as hemosiderin is also a lab test. So iron is bound to protein and stored in the body in two forms. One is ferritin and one is hemosiderin. Right, ferritin is a protein iron complex, apoferritin plus iron, right, and that forms ferritin. It is found in liver, spleen, bone marrow, skeletal muscles. A very small amount of ferritin circulates in the blood serum as well. Normal values are 15 to 300 micrograms. So this serum ferritin levels, the amount of ferritin which circulate in the serum, in the blood, reflects the iron stores. Right, so this normal values reflects the normal iron stores, whereas this hemosiderin is an aggregate of iron and other protein which is found in reticuloendothelial cells of bone marrow, spleen and liver, and this is a bigger molecule, hemosiderin. Right, and if this hemosiderin is increased in the body, that defines the iron overload, that the iron is more in the body if the hemosiderin levels are more than the normal. Right, so we do hemosiderin test in cases where there is iron toxicity in the body. Next is serum iron. So the blood contains serum iron also, and blood contains serum ferritin also. Serum ferritin is the storage iron, whereas serum iron is the circulating iron, which is available iron. So serum iron is iron plus transferrin protein, whereas serum ferritin is iron plus apoferritin protein. These are the normal values, and these are the normal values for ferritin. Serum iron levels is the 90% of iron in the blood, whereas serum ferritin is the 10% of iron in the blood. Right, serum ferritin levels are the iron stores, whereas serum iron levels are the available iron. Right, the serum ferritin levels falls first whenever there is iron deficiency. Suppose if there is iron deficiencies, then the storage iron first start releasing iron into the blood, which is taken up by the transferrin protein, and the normal serum iron levels are maintained. So the first level to fall in iron deficiency is serum ferritin, whereas when the serum ferritin levels are completely exhausted, that means they are below the range of 15 microgram per deciliter, that we say that the iron stores in the body are absent. Right, and after that the serum iron levels in the body, they also start falling. Right, so this serum iron and serum ferritin is helpful to differentiate thalassemias, right, with other microcytic anemias, for example iron deficiency anemias. Right, we will talk about this when we will study the thalassemias. Now you remember that the serum iron levels helps us to differentiate between thalassemia and iron deficiency anemia, whereas the serum ferritin levels, they helps us to differentiate between anemia of inflammation and other microcytic anemias like iron deficiency anemias. We will talk about this point later on. So next is percent transferrin saturation. Percent transferrin saturation. Now this transferrin protein carries many. It can carry many iron molecules. It can carry many iron ions, right? But only generally 1 or 2 iron is attached to one protein, one transferrin molecule. Not all the transferrin molecules in the blood are saturated. Only half of them, or you can say only 33% of them on an average, are saturated with iron, right? The low serum iron level, when the iron levels are less in the blood, it leads to reduction in transferrin saturation. The transferrin saturation falls below the 33%, that is up to the level of below the level of 15%. So we say that the transferrin saturation has reduced. Whereas if the blood is overloaded with iron, it leads to the more saturation of transferrin, right? So the high serum iron level leads to the increased saturation levels, whereas percentage saturation levels, whereas the low serum iron leads to the decrease in saturation levels. So it is calculated by serum iron divided by total iron binding capacity multiplied by 100. Now what is this total iron binding capacity? It is another test, right? This total iron binding capacity, it is the transferrin, right? The transferrin protein which is produced by liver and which carries iron, right, has the capacity to bind approximately 300 microgram per deciliter of the iron, right? So this value is known as total plasma iron binding capacity. So basically this TIBC is the blood capacity to bind iron with transferrin, right? So basically it is an indirectly measurement of transferrin protein in the body. This transferrin protein is very important. If transferrin protein is not there, then the body cannot transfer iron, and no amount of iron given to the patient will be of any use. So this transferrin protein, the black color here represents the transferrin protein. So this transferrin proteins carry the iron, and this TIBC, total iron binding capacity, is the measurement of the transferrin protein, right? So this TIBC is increased. We will talk about this transferrin increase, right? So this transferrin, when it is saturated with iron, we call that as saturated percentage of iron, and the normal is approximately 33%, right? So total iron binding capacity and transferrin. So now let us see all in one: serum iron, serum ferritin, transferrin and TIBC, right? Transferrin is the protein which is reflected by the levels of TIBC, total iron binding capacity, and the percent transferrin saturation, how much transferrin protein is saturated by iron. So in iron deficiency anemia, the serum iron will be less because the iron intake is less, right? Serum iron is less. So iron deficiency anemia, serum iron will be low. Serum ferritin, now when the person is taking less iron, the body stores, the serum ferritin iron stores will start giving iron to the blood, and ultimately they will also become low, right? But the transferrin proteins which are measured by the TIBC levels, they will be high, right? Because the liver start producing more transferrin to maximize the use of iron, or to maximize the transportation of iron to the erythroid precursor cells, for example bone marrow, right? So the TIBC levels will be high in iron deficiency anemia, right? But the transferrin saturation, the saturation of transferrin protein with iron will be low because there is no iron, right? So this is the complete picture of how an iron deficiency anemia is diagnosed, where the serum iron will be low, serum ferritin will be low, transferrin and TIBC will be high, the TIBC, total iron binding capacity, will be high, and the percent transferrin saturation will be low, right? In fact, you can remember in iron deficiency anemia everything will be low apart from TIBC. We will talk about this anemia of inflammation in the coming slides.